welcome to Diecast Restos. I'm Jason, and as promised in my 5A and B London bus video, here are the 5C and D Routemaster buses. The 5C was produced by Lesney for the Matchbox series between 1961 and 1965, with the larger 5D taking the bus baton through until 1969. It was replaced by the superfast Lotus Europa. No longer was the London bus based on a Leyland Titan. The 5C was based on the AEC Routemaster, arguably the most iconic London bus. It was a very well cast replica of the Routemaster too. It had excellent proportions and fantastic grille detailing. All 5Cs were painted varying shades of red, and instead of having side-mounted fitments where the body and chassis connect, it had a lower rear tongue and slot fitment, along with a front-facing one above the cab. Here are the 5C and 5D in better nick, with this a 1960 AEC Routemaster that both are based on. I've chosen to restore each with a set of their original decals, BP Visco-static for the 5C and BP Long Life for the 5D. The 5C was most commonly found with these BP engine oil advertisements. However, players' cigarette decals can be found on slightly rarer early issues. Rarer still were the Peardrax drink adverts from the 56A trolley bus, or a promotional Baron of Beef restaurant version. Each of these variations can fetch significant sums in good condition. Wheels on the 5C can be grey plastic like mine, or black plastic on later examples. It was treated to silver trim on the grille, front number plate and headlights. Unfortunately, this silver trim was omitted from the 5D version. It did gain a white plastic interior though, which helps make up for that disappointment. This makes the 5C and 5D easily distinguishable. Again, the 5D was always painted shades of red. Its decals were most commonly the BP Long Life advertising boards that can be seen on my model. The Visco-static decals of the 5C are also often found applied. Neither of these versions are considered rare or valuable. Models with the Baron of Beef decals from the 5C promotionals are rare. Even more so are the Pegram Shopfitters promotional decals, or the News of the World ads from the Models of Yesteryear Y3 tram. A casting variation to the 5D during production saw some of the casting lines become more defined, and could have 4 instead of 5 lines of text on the base. The 5D Routemaster was deemed unsuitable for conversion to Lesney's new superfast range in 1969. The small black plastic wheels that all 5Ds had fitted would not have reworked well to the new larger low friction wheels used on superfast models, so it was replaced by a brand new casting. This was the 5E Lotus Europa. Perhaps coincidentally, production of the Routemaster bus ended in 1968, although they remained in service until December 2005. The Routemaster was developed between 1947 and 1956, with a design brief for a lighter, more fuel-efficient bus that was easier to operate but could be maintained using existing practices, all the while having easier and lower cost servicing. It was designed by London Transport. The result was a 64-seated passenger vehicle that was 3/4 of a tonne lighter than the lower capacity existing AEC Regent RT buses. The intention was to use the Routemaster to replace trolley buses and then older types of diesel bus. It was built at Park Royal Vehicles, while the running units were supplied by AEC. Both companies were owned by Associated Commercial Vehicles, who were in turn taken over by our old friends Leyland Motors in 1962. They used techniques borrowed from aircraft production during World War II, along with aluminium to keep the weight low. It also featured for the first time on a bus independent front suspension, power steering, a fully automatic gearbox and power hydraulic braking. First exhibited at the Earls Court Commercial Motor Show in 1954, London Transport went on to put 4 Routemaster prototypes into service between 1956 and 1958. It went into full service in London in 1959. London Transport would take delivery of 2,123 RM class buses until the final delivery in 1968. These standard buses were 27.5 feet in length or 8.38 metres. 524 long buses were also built. These RMLs were 2.5 feet longer than the standard RM and could accommodate 72 seated passengers. A coach version was built for Green Line coaches. These were equipped with modified suspension and interiors to suit their longer range to make them more comfortable. These RMC or RML for the elongated types had an electrically operated rear door instead of an open platform and a semi-automatic gearbox with higher gear ratios. RMCs seated 57 and 69 were built. RMLs seated 65 and 43 were built. These buses could be distinguished from the regular Routemasters by their twin headlights. The only other version that had twin headlights would have most likely been seen towing a trailer. These were the RMAs, built for British European Airways to ferry passengers from the West London Air Terminal to Heathrow Airport. I talked briefly about these in my 58A BEA coach restoration video, the precursor coach to the Routemaster on that 14-mile route. The difference with the RMAs to the RMCs was that its staircase and entrance door was located at the front of the bus instead of the back. 65 of these were built. The only other Routemaster class produced also had this same front entrance layout. These were the long RMF, and all but one of the 51 built were used by the Northern General Transport Company. AEC also built a one-off prototype front entrance but rear engine bus called the FRM. Completed in 1966, it saw service in London, then London coaches, and remained in use until 1983. I'm currently applying the trim to the 5C. I felt the 5D would be missing out without it, so as a bit of a change to my usual ethos, I add in matching trim to it. The front just looked a bit too plain without it. Routemasters remained in regular service until 1982, when they began being withdrawn and transferred to training fleets. Many routes in London converted to driver-only operation during staff shortages in the 1970s, foregoing the conductor. This also helped reduce costs. AEC's closure by British Leyland in 1979 meant that there was a shortage of parts. Despite these issues, Routemasters were given several life extensions and refurbishments over the following decades. They survived the privatisation of London bus services at the end of the 80s due to the Routemaster's solid structure. Entering the 2000s, debates over the future of the Routemaster were rife. While still mechanically sound, opponents cited accessibility issues with the introduction of new legislation, which meant that all new buses entering service in London required a low-floor design. Final withdrawals began in 2003, with the final bus route run on the 9th of December 2005. This Route 159 bus was greeted by huge crowds as it made its return to the Brixton depot for the final time. As a result of the withdrawal, all London buses now had a low floor by January 2006. Since then, Routemasters have been retained on heritage routes throughout London. They can frequently be seen in tour and charter use. With a total of 2,876 Routemasters built, remarkably 1,280 are still in existence. Their design and status helped preserve them, with large numbers ending up in the hands of private owners after their withdrawal. The Routemaster's 70th anniversary is due to be celebrated at Finsbury Park in London in July 2024. I'm sure it will be a fantastic event to honour the iconic London bus. After all, it was voted one of Britain's top 10 design icons in 2006, which included the Mini, Concorde, Spitfire, the Tube Map and the red telephone box. So here were my pair of Routemaster buses by Lesney. I'll use the same format as in my 5A and B video, meaning I will reveal both together first, then review each bus individually. I restored both in Highcoat's Van Post Office Red, while in my previous video the buses received Tamiya's TS8 Italian Red. It may be the name, but I think Post Office Red will be more fitting on this British institution. Let's take a look at them now. They are looking a great deal more vibrant in their new coats of paint, especially the 5C, which was awfully flaky. Each bus has a new reproduction set of decals from Steve Flowers Model Supplies. I will leave a link to the store in the video description. Both buses also had very rusty axles that needed tidying up. You'll have seen at the very beginning I needed to tap the grey wheels of the 5C in order to loosen them up. You can see they were clogged with dirt and were looking very brown. There's no doubt in my mind that this model was played with outside in the wet mud. That paint dissolved in my hands every time I touched it. I'm surprised that there was any evidence of its BP Visco-static decals left at all. There was certainly no evidence of its silver trim to the front either. This was a great candidate for restoration and it made for an excellent transformation transition. These waterslide transfers are a superb match to the original design. Perhaps the lettering is a touch too dense, but the colour and the logos to me are spot on. I replaced the original trim as per Lesney specification while I washed the wheels of their mud and removed the rust from the axles. You'll have to let me know in the comments which of the 5C or 5D you prefer. I've also lined up the 5A to D in the video outro, so be sure to stick around to see that. My 5D here had flecks of blue paint in places, and while it's not as bad as the 5C, it still had patchy paint. The BP Long Life decals had stood the test of time better than its predecessor, with the majority of them still intact. Again, the axles were rust afflicted, but it had fared better than the 5Cs. Anyway, are you ready for one last transition? Here we go. The lettering on these decals could do with being a bit bolder with some more kerning, but otherwise they look good on the fresh paint with the refreshed wheels, plus that bonus front trim for good measure. If you enjoyed this pair of restos, leave a like and drop your thoughts in the comments. Please subscribe if you haven't already done so, since the stats show most of my viewers aren't. So all that leaves me to say is thank you for watching, and I will see you again for the next one. Bye for now.